Let's dive right into this explainer because, guys, the 2026 World Cup semifinals, they're shaping up to be the most historically loaded and honestly, statistically fascinating matchups we have literally ever seen. We're at the climax of the biggest World Cup in history, and the storylines colliding in this Final Four, they're just incredible. We're talking legendary, decades-old grudges, statistical models completely contradicting public opinion, and a concentration of pure footballing royalty that is just totally unique.
And a huge reason for all this hype comes down to the number 4. Seriously, get this. For the absolute first time in history, the top 4 FIFA-ranked teams have all made the semifinals. It's a complete statistical anomaly. Usually in these massive tournaments, a dark horse sneaks through, or a heavyweight gets shockingly knocked out early. Not this time. What we're witnessing right now is the absolute pinnacle of international football. The undisputed 4 best teams on the planet left standing, ready to battle it out.
Okay, so let's kick things off by looking at our first massive matchup, a true clash of the European kings. This game is going down in Dallas on July 14th, and it's a fascinating contrast in technical brilliance. On one side, you have France's modern dominance under Kylian Mbappe. I mean, the guy has reached the semis in all 3 of his World Cup appearances. He's trying to reach the finals in every single World Cup he's ever played in, after they dispatched Morocco 2-0. That is just a staggering achievement. But then on the other side, you have a totally resurgent Spain. They outlasted Belgium, with Mikel Merino stepping up yet again in the 88th minute to send them to their first semifinal since they won the whole thing back in 2010. So yeah, a true heavyweight bout between the current number 1 and number 2 ranked teams in the world. Now, while that European clash is highly technical, our other semifinal over in Atlanta, well, that one is a 40-year grudge match fueled by something entirely different.
When England and Argentina step onto the pitch, they're carrying 4 decades of explosive, highly emotional history. Geopolitics and sports are completely intertwined here. It goes back to 1966 when Antonio Ratin was sent off, which actually prompted the England manager to call the Argentine players animals. Then you have the tragic 1982 Falklands War, which claimed the lives of 285 British and 659 Argentine personnel. That real-world conflict fundamentally altered the atmosphere of this fixture, leading right into that unforgettable 1986 World Cup clash.
You really have to understand the immense emotional weight of that 1986 quarterfinal. For Diego Maradona and the Argentine team, this wasn't just a football match. As Maradona himself later admitted, despite claims to the contrary beforehand, they viewed the game as a sort of symbolic revenge following the real-world conflict. It's a stark reminder of how deeply international football intersects with national identity and historical grief. They stepped onto that pitch in Mexico City carrying the weight of an entire nation. And what actually happened in that match is just staggering. In exactly 4 minutes, just 240 seconds, football history was completely flipped upside down. First, Maradona famously punched the ball over goalkeeper Peter Shilton. The English players were furious, and rightly so. The Tunisian referee totally missed the clear handball, especially considering Maradona was 8 inches shorter than Shilton. But then, literally moments later, Maradona dribbled past 5 English players to score the goal of the century. Think about that. The most infamous act of deception, followed immediately by arguably the greatest display of individual skill.
And to cap it all off, Maradona's infamous post-match comment about that first goal, saying it was a little with his head and a little with the hand of God, well, that permanently etched the moment into footballing history. That intense sense of injustice from the English, mixed with the undeniable brilliance of that second goal, cemented a sporting rivalry that is just as fierce today. So, fast forward to 2026, and where does that leave us? Both teams are rolling into this rematch with massive momentum. England is desperate to end a 60-year drought after grinding out a tough win against Norway, thanks to Jude Bellingham scoring a brace in extra time. Meanwhile, Lionel Messi's Argentina is trying to repeat as champions after surviving an incredibly tense VAR-filled battle against a 10-man Swiss squad. The stakes are astronomical. Immortality for Messi going back-to-back or legendary status for an England squad trying to finally bring it home.
All right, let's take a deep breath, step away from all that raw human drama for a second, and look at the cold, hard, objective data. Before we get into the numbers, it's really important to understand how the Opta supercomputer actually works. It strips away all the emotion. It doesn't care about the hand of God or Mbappe's crazy semifinal streak. Instead, it calibrates attacking and defensive ratings from thousands of past matches, accounts for the actual draw, the fixture sequencing, and the locations, and then it runs the entire tournament through 10,000 separate simulations to find the most mathematically probable outcomes. So out of those 10,000 simulations, who does the machine like? Well,
Spain emerges as the clear favorite out of the final four. The model gives them a 16.1% probability of winning it all, with France trailing a bit at 13%. Spain's underlying data is actually overwhelmingly strong. Believe it or not, they were the only team in the entire tournament that the model gave a greater than 50% chance to just reach the quarterfinals. It heavily respects their recent Euro 2024 win and Nations League performances.
What's super fascinating for sports analysts is where this data totally diverges from popular opinion and the betting markets. For example, Opta was significantly more bearish on teams like Brazil and Norway. The bookmakers gave Brazil a 10% chance and Norway 6.7%, but the supercomputer only 6.6% for Brazil and 3.5% for Norway. The model wasn't swayed by the hype around Erling Haaland because it factored in Norway's difficult path, and it aggressively faded Brazil despite massive public optimism. It just goes to show that sometimes collective human sentiment totally misjudges the underlying statistical reality. And when we look at the probabilities for the Final Four, the margins between England and Argentina are incredibly tight. I mean, they share an identical 30.3% probability to get past the semifinals. According to the simulations, that Atlanta match is a literal coin flip. But if you look closely, the model gives England just a tiny fraction of a percent higher probability to go on and win the whole thing, making them the third overall favorite at 11.2%, just a hair ahead of defending champions Argentina at 10.4%. Which brings us to the ultimate question as we wrap up this explainer: data or destiny? Will the cold, impartial logic of the supercomputer prevail, or will historical destiny write the final chapter? Spain has the math, France has Mbappé, England is chasing the end of a 60-year curse, and Argentina is fueled by a 40-year rivalry. So, what do you think? Will history repeat itself, or are we about to witness something entirely new?